So Nancy, Rob, and Darian, I want to thank you for taking time out for doing the Art of Fearlessly Giving Back interview. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and what your position is here at WebPT?
I'm Nancy Ham, and I'm the CEO of WebPT.
Darian Hong, the CFO.
I'm Rob Rust, and I'm the CTO.
CTO, so the Chief Technology Officer.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you guys could work anywhere. I mean, you guys all have impressive. I've seen your LinkedIn profiles; they're all impressive. Why WebPT?
Why don't we go in the order in which we arrived?
That's a really good way to do it.
Spot. For me, there were a couple things. When I was first started to talk with the people at WebPT, the mission really stood out to me about empowering the rehab therapists to be great. And so I just saw as the CTO, there was just a unique opportunity to work with a product to really actually help that group. But one of the most interesting things was when I was going through the process, it was actually the LinkedIn page or not LinkedIn, the Facebook page that got me more than anything. You go
Interesting.
you go out to the Facebook page and there is like 42,000 followers on the Facebook page. And never had I really seen a company that had created that much of a community. So I'm like, if you've got a product that can create that kind of a community, this is definitely worth checking out.
So that's actually a really kind of good. That's a good thing because you guys are definitely a very social media savvy company, and so that's interesting that one of your leaders is attracted by social media. So it works.
Yeah, but it's just you just don't see a lot of companies with a product attract and create that kind of a community around their product. And so that's that was an eye opener.
That gave you a pause.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely got us a lot deeper into the process.
That's awesome. How about you, Darren?
Yeah, so you would think as a CFO, right, I'd be looking for companies that have great financial performance, great metrics, which WebPT had all of those. But meeting with a lot of other B2B software companies, the big standout to me on WebPT was the culture and the mission. So the culture and the mission really followed together. So the mission of empowering therapists to give greatness in practice, but then they're also helping others be better, right? You're improving the lives of the patients they're serving to be better at what they to be healthier. And so then putting those two together and the transparency and the culture that the company had is what really attracted me to say this is the company to come to. I mean, I came all the way from Los Angeles to get here.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's cool. I love LA. I do. I love that we're so close. So you probably go back often, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's so close by.
Yeah, cool. How about you? Because you're kind of the newbie.
I'm the newbie, and my road was perhaps a little more intellectual at the beginning because I've been in healthcare 25 years, and I've really been following what's called the continuum of care, starting over in primary care to specialty care to hospitals, kind of following the path of digitization across the industry. So I had an intellectual interest in post-acute, which is what physical therapy is part of. So helping patients who've had an injury or an operation recover to their best health. It's a huge part of the healthcare ecosystem, and I just saw so much opportunity to make it better, more efficient, more successful for both those who practice in it, but really for the patients. So that was my intellectual thesis, but the real story is I came down here and I met Heidi, and then I met the team, and I thought, well, I'm a goner.
Yeah,
So,
that's it. End of story.
End of story.
Yeah, because the people really are a driver.
It is, and we talk about the culture, but it really is this focus on mission of helping therapists achieve greatness in practice. It's not just something we say. It's not expensive wallpaper that we just hang on the walls. It's what we mean. It's what we burn to do. It's what we work on every day. And so it's that intense focus on the mission. And back to the Facebook comment, we feel and literally touch that mission every day. The other thing is I'm a Southern girl, I'm a hugger. I love the industry, but all my customers are huggers because they're hands-on healers. So they literally tell us every day through every possible channel, we're helping them be successful clinically, financially, and with patients. And I mean, honestly, what's better than that?
And the rehab therapy world has been such an underserved population. You really are. I have a soft spot for underdogs, so
Yeah, for sure.
you get to serve the underdog in this case, which is awesome, right?
Well, and entrepreneurs, because many of the therapists, they go to school, they incur a lot of student debt, and yet they bravely open a clinic and get going. And so we're also helping entrepreneurs.
So they're crazy.
Yes, but
They're
we love
crazy
that about
people.
them.
That's crazy. So this charity that, well, we're going to wait on, we're going to ask the second question first. So the core value that you guys are focusing on is do Moss with Mano. So this is a kind of interesting thing because you guys are going through a huge merger right now, which is super exciting. And you know, the roots of WebPT are bootstrap roots, and for some people don't know what that word means, but basically it was self-funded. And so now, you know, you've kind of kept that value, and it's across your entire culture. So tell us a little bit about what you guys think that value is.
Darian is our
Oh, yeah, this is
CFO.
so useful.
Yeah, well, this is perfect natural.
Just cut the budget. So,
No
yeah,
fancy stuff.
Do Mas Menos to me is not, it's not about being cheap or not spending money. It's really about really considering if something's necessary. So I say it all the time, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean you should spend it, and just because it's not in the budget doesn't mean you shouldn't spend it.
Which is
So-
like life, right? I mean, if we all live that way,
Things are
wouldn't
changing constantly,
Right.
and just always considering, you know, we could buy this table for $20,000, or can a $5,000 table do and still provide us the quality we need and make us productive and do the work we need. So it's really about that, and then also about asking our partners, our vendors, to give us more. It doesn't always mean giving us the lowest price. It means maybe giving us more services, help me save money, or give me more money is what I always ask our partners and vendors, and so they can give us value in other ways.
And they kind of expect that from you, right?
That's right. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I think of it as an if-then statement. If we don't spend money on this, then we can invest more on that. So if we spend less on furniture, then we can hire another developer. If we spend less on corporate supplies, we can add somebody to help our customers. So for me, it's about intelligent investments, and I just love that it creates a culture where everyone thinks that way. I've never worked with a team before who come and say, you know, I know this was in the plan, but I don't think we should do that anymore because I think we have a higher need over here.
Which is an awesome thing. So technology is expensive, right? So you're probably all day long, you know, all day long going, right?
So interestingly, this one of all the values is my most favorite because it aligns really well with technology and the movement in software development back in, really it was around the late 90s, early 2000s when lean software development methodologies came about. And really it is all of, you know, the lean software movement with Scrum and Agile is really, it's really the do Moss with Minnows mentality. And so that is actually one of my key principles, the lean attitude, and that's one of our core foundations that we've built out in engineering. And you know, it can mean a lot of things, but at its basic, it's really around eliminating waste. It's about empowering the people to do it without a lot of infrastructure and needs around there, and it's also about continuous delivery of value out to our members. So instead of taking these large, long, monolithic projects, we're actually getting things out in their hands on a weekly basis. So that's
so smart.
So that's how we've kind of adopted the do Moss with Minnows, if you will. It's not about work harder; it's just about being smarter and just get the waste out.
Well, the other thing I'll add is for us it often means automation. So instead of hiring 10 more people to do a bad job, meaning they're doing something manually, repetitively, which is not very inspirational, not very culturally aligned, let's invest a little money to automate that problem away. So we did a project last year where we spent a little money to automate something that then stopped over 1,000 phone calls a month and made our members so much happier that they didn't have to call us to solve that problem.
This is so interesting that you're talking about this. Is one of the things that Heidi said in her interview is when it came to the community service piece of things, she believes in the rising tide effect. So I thought, I've heard that said, but what does that mean, you know? So that comes from it's actually an older saying that came from way back when, but where it became really noticed and kind of famous was JFK used it in a speech during his, in 1960, when he was campaigning for president, and he was in Ohio, in Canton, Ohio, and they were talking about the St. Lawrence waterway. And Ohio had actually lost a lot of jobs due to automation. and he was saying that by opening up the waterway, it actually helped Ohio, which in turn helped Massachusetts, which in turn helped the country. And I thought it was interesting because what he was talking about was automation taking jobs and not replacing them. And then here Heidi is, you know, years and years and years later, using it to talk about a technology technology company that is automating things, which is actually creating jobs. So the way life has changed is it's gone from automation taking jobs to WebPT now has 300 plus employees, correct?
Well, and also again, automation creating more inspiring jobs. In healthcare, there's the concept of practicing at the top of your license. So if you're a PT, well, spend all your time treating patients.
Right.
Not trying to figure out how to get your bills out.
Right. Not doing data entry.
Exactly. And we have the same concept here. We want every employee to operate at the top of their skill set. And manual work, wasteful work, bureaucratic work just takes that time away from you and drains you of your energy. So yes, it helps create more jobs, but almost more importantly to me is it creates better jobs, more fulfilling jobs. And that's why people love being here and why they stay here and why they grow, because we give them the space and the time to do that.
It's really interesting because JFK was talking about coal mining jobs, right? There's a job that's, you know, not an easy job and dangerous, right? So how does Support My Club, which is the charity that your interview is lined up with, how do you think Support My Club exemplifies the Do Mas with Manos value? Because I've already met with them and spoken with Amy, and I'm really, it's interesting. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say the alignment is.
Well, I love this one because when I was in high school, I was definitely into clubs, and my favorite role, I was actually president of the club of all the presidents of all the other clubs. And
so driver from the beginning.
Well, but
love
clubs are mas a menos by definition.
Right.
Clubs, they've all been defunded, right? And so they have to be really scrappy, as Darian would say.
Yeah.
They have to be clever about how do I get money, how do I fundraise, how do I make it go as far as possible. So they themselves are sort of a avatar for this value, if you will. But the way the cycle works with Support My Clubs is super cool, right? Because they ask for money, and so let's say I give them $100. Well, that helps them buy something they really need for that club, but then they have to turn around and give $100 worth of community service. So talk about taking a small investment and amplifying it. It's really a fantastic model.
It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. What do you guys think?
So I agree with it, right? Well, the give back loop,
right?
Where the receiver becomes the giver, is really it's an awesome structure, right? Because you've cut out, you get into the Do Mas with Manos, you've really cut out all the middlemen that all have their hands into the fundraising industry that's floating out there, and they're donating their time, so they get the donation, and then they give it back in their time, and you've cut out all the middlemen, and it's just a phenomenal loop.
It's a really cool
I do love
thing.
that the cycle, because as everyone, Nancy and Rob has said, of course normally you fund something, it's for a one-time thing and it ends there. It helps that end recipient and it's done. But this cycle of the students doing community service work, which actually helps their community, which actually builds the community up and creates more leadership with the kids in the community that do more, that cycle is amazing. So the dollar goes very far in that cycle, and it's a very unique thing. I've never seen something like this. So that's the Support My Club was an amazing thing to see, and just that cycle, that loop.
I love that you guys both picked up on that. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, back to sort of social media, it also creates then more raving fans of the club, who then might become donors of the club, which creates more service.
It's really brilliant.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant.
There were two things I really loved about it. One was, well, there's three things. One was what you mentioned, but also that it's created kind of like a gift registry. So if you only had enough money to buy one plate setting, then you didn't have to buy the 50 plate settings, So if you only have enough cash, if you have $15 and you can buy some drumsticks, that gives folks that $15 is a lot of money to some folks. So it gives everybody the opportunity to give. And then I also like the fact that it teaches the kids about the cycle of giving. So they're actually not just getting the drumstick, they're realizing that they have to give back, and so there's a lesson there about reciprocity, which I really liked a lot about that. So, what can you tell other companies about the benefits of being socially responsible? Because you guys are super, not one charity, but 6 charities we're working with here. You guys are super responsible as far as giving to specific charities, but also you're constantly doing things like blood drives and toy drives and backbook drives, and there's always something happening literally on a moment-to-moment basis here at WebPT. Can you tell us the benefit of that for other companies to learn?
I mean, I think there's several things. The first thing is it's the right thing to do, and businesses are in the right position to help the communities, right? We're in that position. We create jobs. Of course, we get revenue from our clients, but we create jobs and we pay taxes, and so we can help the community with all the employees we have. But I think the other things, is it creates a brand that people can make an emotional connection with, which in turn help the business, right? You can get better employees and they want to stay because they like being part of a brand that has this type of mission and that have an emotional connection. Customers love it, so it's good for even on the marketing side. If you're thinking from a company profit and loss sort of perspective, customers love it as well. Why wouldn't a customer want to work with a vendor or partner that is helping their community, that is doing the right things for the places that we live and work? So I think those things, it helps the company in a lot of ways. It's revenue, it's employees, it's sort of great for the company's even bottom line. So
because
it's not just
no-brainer
it's
across
just
the
for
board,
right thing
right?
to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's smart business.
Right.
Smart business.
And then as a company, if you can find that cause that relates to your company mission, then it folds in very nicely. It's really effortless, and then your employees, the employee satisfaction even improves because it is all intertwined and tied nicely.
Yeah, for me, it almost in a weird way ties back to Más o Menos, because when you have a structure of core values that are activated, part of the vocabulary, part of how we make decisions, then you don't have to be very top down. You don't have to be very prescriptive. You can empower people more readily because they have this compass, a framework through which to make decisions, and we can trust that they're going to make the right decision. So it allows the company to be fairly self-driving in a really interesting way, which is motivating but also efficient.
No-brainer, right? Financially, as far as retaining good employees and getting things done, and really across the board is a good idea. Well, that's really awesome. Now, the next question is a personal question, and I ask this of everybody I interview. So I've interviewed more than 50 leaders at this point in these 4 series that I've done, and it's about fear. And what is the biggest lesson that you personally have learned about fearlessness? Because nobody gets to be a leader without having to walk through some stuff. What's your personal take on being fearless?
Well, for me, people often will look at someone and look at their LinkedIn profile, look at my LinkedIn profile and say, wow, you've had a lot of success. I say, what's not on there are all my failures. I mean, I have failed at every step of my life and my career. I've tried out for, to be the college mascot. I've interviewed to be on a board. I've interviewed for jobs. I had bad ideas. I've failed constantly. And so, but I don't think about it as failure, because that would be a fear word. For me, I just think about it as learning. I learned something from every one of those experiences. I learned where I had gaps. I learned where I had strengths. I met new people who became part of my network. I met friends. And so I always ask people, what are you afraid of? Why are you afraid you won't get it? So what? You grew from the process of striving for it. And so that'll just make you stronger the next time. So I just tell people all the time, fling yourself forward.
I like
and
that.
Good things will happen. They really will. Don't self-defeat, which I think is a real issue, especially for women. Just to go on for just a minute, there's a really great study that said men will interview for a job where they meet only half of the stated requirements. Women think they need to meet 100%. So they self-defeat because they don't try. So my learning early on was just try. So it doesn't work out. Move on. Try again.
That's cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've definitely taken on my life about being fearless and taking risks. And, to Nancy's point, I think taking the risks and making the mistakes, I made plenty. I make them every day. I learn from them and become better. I have this one thing and maybe a motto for people that work with me or I mentor, and I always say, your main job is to work yourself out of the job. And people just go, wow, that is the scariest thing you've ever said to me. I said, and what has happened to me in my life, as I've worried about losing a job, let's say, I've always underperformed. As I worried about doing a skateboard trick when I was a little kid, I've always failed at doing the trick. I've always gotten hurt. And it's those times when I took the risk and the courage and just said, I'm jumping in, is when I've actually outperformed. And so, working yourself out of a job, you never do. When you take those risks and you push yourself, you actually end up just getting more. So I work myself out of a job on something, and you get more challenges, and people want to be a part of what you're doing. So that's the way I live, and the lessons I've learned again is I've always made it out of everything I've done where I've taken a big risk. It's always been okay, and in fact I've always ended up in a better place, and I've learned a lot and grown a lot. So that's definitely how I live. So I love your question.
That's a super cool way. I have worked myself out of a job, and I think it was one of the biggest learning lessons I've ever had. So it's really cool that you mentioned that. How about you, last but not least?
So here comes the engineering answer. What I've learned over the years, to me being fearless is responsible risk taking. And so that can mean a lot of things. But for me, in every decision and everything we do, there's always a certain amount of uncertainty associated to it. And it's that uncertainty which really kind of creates the fear, right? What will happen if this? What's going to happen if this happens, right? And so for me, what I've learned over the years is I spend a lot of time just trying to understand my assumptions and the risks associated with those assumptions, and then just manage the hell out of them. Is really what it's about. And if there's just a lot of assumptions and risks that I don't feel can be managed, then you might not be in the responsible risk taking. And but so it's that mindset that's helped me get through some of my own personal challenges when fear starts bubbling up in there, because it's always there, but it's always around that uncertainty. So how do we clear out that uncertainty as much as possible?
That's one of the Dale Carnegie tricks is imagine the worst thing that could possibly happen and then manage up from there. So I've used that over and over again in my life. It just, what if the worst thing possibly happens? Oh, well, okay.
I can deal with it.
I can deal with it.
So
once you know that, if you can't deal with the worst thing that can happen, then, and I've never had that happen. There's always the, death, right? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? There's always been some way to manage my way out of that, or to kind of make a different decision or whatever. But that's really cool that you put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you very much for taking time out to do the interview. I look forward to seeing you on May 18th at the Arizona Science Center for the opening.
Absolutely.
And good luck, managing everything that you're going through as far as changes and continue to move forward. Thank you very much for your service to the company and to the community at large. And thanks again.
Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you.